Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, September 25th. Hope everybody has had a great day so far. In today's show, we will be covering a lot of different stories. Many huge stories coming out of the world of college football, including quarterback Matthew Sluka stepping away from UNLV, a team that is in our top 5 for that group of 5 playoff spot right now due to NIL disputes. We'll break down that whole situation as it continues to evolve. Then we're going to shift our focus to the Pac-12. The Pac-12 adds another member, has a couple of teams commit to their own conferences, talk about what's going on over there, some MLB playoff updates, some WNBA playoff updates, and of course we're going to start off our show with the NFL Rookie Report. But before we get into all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, September 25th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NFL Rookie Report, NFL Week 3 Rookie Report. We had four rookie quarterbacks have an appearance this week, including the debut of Drake May with the Patriots. We also had a bunch of really solid rookie wide receiver performances. We'll break down all of that in just a second, starting off with those quarterbacks, and what a better place to start off with than with Drake May. Drake May comes in at the end of a blowout, leads basically a drive. He finishes with the stat line 4 for 8 for 22 yards, along with 2 rushes for 12 yards to his name. A solid first entry for him. It wasn't anything spectacular. He didn't make many mistakes. He had his first throw got knocked away. It was a little bit of a dangerous throw, but all in all, that was the one kind of questionable decision he made. He was able to escape a little bit behind a not that great offensive line. He was able to extend the play against a very good Jets defense, a defensive line that was getting pressure on Jacoby Brissett all day long. He comes in, again, it is a blowout. They're not trying to score. They're just kind of running the clock a little bit, but he leads a drive down the field. It's slow, it's methodical, but through the air, he gets it done. 4 for 8, 22 yards. He doesn't really push the ball downfield, but he wasn't really supposed to. You take a look at what some of the other rookie quarterbacks are doing, what some of the other rookie quarterbacks are succeeding at. They're not succeeding at pushing the ball down the field outside of a couple of the throws from Jaden Daniels, who we'll get to later on. But it was a solid debut for Drake May. Drake May is not going to start. That is still Jacoby Brissett's job, but we got to see him out in NFL action. He got his welcome to the NFL moment, got sacked, got hit hard a little bit. He knows what game speed is like, and that's going to do wonders for his development on a not that great Patriots team. So I'm excited to see him when he eventually does come in about halfway through this season. Probably won't see him for another couple of weeks, except in another one of those blowout situations. But I digress. It was good to see Drake May out there. He didn't look awful. He didn't look world-beating, but that's kind of what we expected out of him. The next rookie quarterback on my list is Bo Nix. Bo Nix finishes with the stat line 25 for 36, 216 yards, adding nine carries on the ground for 47 yards and a touchdown and a win. His first win as an NFL starter. The noise was getting a little bit loud over there in Denver. Bo Nix was getting a little bit of that, hey, maybe we should bench him. He wasn't able to push the ball downfield. And like I was saying about Drake May, like I was saying about Jaden Daniels heading into this week, that is kind of how it was designed a little bit. You always like to see the ability to push it downfield, but these rookie quarterbacks behind these offensive lines that aren't the greatest, not being able to push it downfield is a little bit acceptable, is understandable. Like, just getting the ball out of their hands quick into their playmakers, that's how you move the ball. Bo Nix has been solid about that all year round. He hasn't been a world beater. Again, It's kind of what we expected out of Bo Nix. This is not a very good Broncos team. We saw him be able to push the ball downfield a little bit. We saw him be able to be accurate on those 5+, 10+ yard throws in this game against the Bucs, and that is really, really good for this development for the Broncos. If he can continue to do that, play like he did against the Bucs, this is a guy that we can, like we saw in the preseason, was able to dissect defenses, was able to do his thing a little bit. He was really struggling in the first 2 weeks of the season. He seemingly finally puts it together here against not the greatest defense in the world in Tampa Bay, but still, it's a very encouraging sign, being able to push the ball downfield. Even just a little bit. It's very encouraging to see. Caleb Williams is next on our list here. He throws the ball 52 times. We talked about it in our Week 3 review a little bit, but 33 for 52, 363 yards. He's the first rookie quarterback to throw a touchdown in the NFL, finishes with 2 of them, but he also finishes with 2 interceptions. And a lot of that blame can be put on that Bears offensive line. That Bears offensive line is awful. They cannot run the ball, point blank, period. They can't run the ball against maybe the worst run defense in the NFL in the Colts. Then they can't run it against anyone. That offensive line is not providing him with a lot of protection, but the fact that he dropped back 52 times in a game in just his 3rd career start, the fact that, I mean, you look at the numbers and it's not that bad. I know people are trying to dogpile on him, say, oh, Jaden Daniels was much better, and Jaden Daniels was much better this week. But I think it's a little early to have that kind of reaction. Jaden Daniels just had one of the best rookie performances in the history of the NFL. That's not something we expect him to do every day. 21 for 23, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air, adding 12 for 39 and another touchdown on the ground. 3 total touchdowns, 2 total incompletions on the day for Jaden Daniels. And he would just look poised, ready to go against a not very good secondary in the Bengals. Look, I know we want to compare these 2 quarterbacks, and I know it's important to compare them. They're at very similar stages. They both have similar-ish teams, I would say. But you also have to remember that this is just their 3rd game. You can't sit here and say, oh, Caleb Williams is a bust already. And I've seen a lot of people sit here and say that, and I honestly cannot believe that people are going through that and having that discussion already. Has he lost his lead for that Offensive Rookie of the Year award? Absolutely, I think he has. I think currently he's in 3rd place, if I'm being honest with you. But that doesn't mean he's a bust. It just means he's not living up to that unreal expectation that people in the media put on him. And that's fine. You look at that offensive line in Chicago, he's still doing good things. 363 yards on 33 completions. You know, I know he had to throw the ball 52 times, but that's still over 10 yards of completion. That's a solid rate right there. He's moving the offense. He got 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I know is not great, but still, there's some encouraging signs out of it as well. And I think people are overreacting just a little bit to Caleb Williams. Getting into the receivers a little bit, I want to highlight a couple of those first-round guys. Obviously, Malik Nabers has been the headliner from all the wide receivers so far. He goes 8 catches, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns, adding a couple of yards on the ground. But Malik Nabers, what he's been able to do, his highlight reel catches, he's really asserting himself as one of the best receivers in the league. Next to him is the first receiver off the board, Marvin Harrison, 5 for 64 and a touchdown in their loss against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, who played stifling defense, Marvin Harrison able to score a touchdown in his 2nd straight week. Now both he and Malik Nabers have 2 touchdowns, very similar yardage total for the 2 of them. It's going to be a fun race for best receiver. These 2 are going to be very good for a very long time. Some of the more interesting ones. Rome Odunze had his first real big game. He caught his first touchdown. Rookie for the Bears, the other first-round pick, the last of the big 3 there. 6 for 112 and that touchdown thrown by Caleb Williams, both of their first touchdowns. Keon Coleman only had 1 catch. It was for a touchdown, though, getting to some of those second-rounders. Xavier Worthy has really started to fall off a bit from his Week 1 hype after just 2 catches for 17 yards. He had 3 rushes, so he's getting some touches. They're getting him the ball in creative ways, but he hasn't been as explosive as he was in Week 1. And then Brian Thomas Jr., who has been really the only weapon for Trevor Lawrence on the Jaguars right now. 5 catches, 48 yards. It wasn't as good as his first 2 games, but still he's shown to be a very reliable weapon in an offense that does not have a lot of those reliable weapons. We're taking a look at the rookies. There are a lot of really successful ones. If I'm taking a look at these offensive rookies right here and I'm putting them in order, favorite for offensive rookie of the year, obviously Jaden Daniels go first after what he was able to do on Monday Night Football. Quarterback bias doesn't really matter. Setting a quarterback record for completion percentage, just near perfect game. It's hard to play a more perfect game than he did on Monday Night Football. He's number 1. Malik Neighbors is 2, followed by Marvin Harrison and Caleb Williams. That's where I have it right now. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of this. How do you think the rookies are performing so far, 3 weeks into the NFL? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to dive into the craziness that is college football right now. Matthew Sluka, starting quarterback for the UNLV for UNLV right now, has officially stepped away from the program, deciding to redshirt instead. We'll break down that ever-evolving story, as, again, it is still currently evolving. But we'll break down all of that, all the details we know, coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the face shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make it every day and I'm impatient. Hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't need shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, crowds keep my way into be put down. Leaving your place, I'll miss my sound. I want that shit that I'm getting right now. I'm losing it, the losing fit, solution shit. A stupid myth. You choose to live, but choose to dip. You choose to fight, and lose your grip and lose your gift. Dog. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the rookie report for week 3 of the NFL season. All of the NFL quarterbacks and wide receiver, the top performances from these young first-year players in the NFL this year. In this segment, though, we are going to take it to the most shocking story, maybe the most interesting story of the day, maybe of the whole week. Matthew Sluka, starting quarterback for UNLV, a team that is currently competing for a playoff spot, has officially stepped away from the team. And we're going to break down why all that happened, what is going on there. It's a very interesting situation, and it has to do with NIL here. So we're going to break all of that down in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, September 25th. But like I was saying, we are getting into one of the more interesting stories, I think, of the entire college football season. Quarterback Matthew Sluka steps away from the program. And for those who have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm going to break down the whole situation for you. Matthew Sluka was an All-American quarterback a couple of years in a row at the FCS program, Holy Cross. He spent his first 4 years, came in 2020, first 4 years, got his got his COVID year. That's what he's using right now. He hadn't used a red shirt or anything. Just played 4 straight years at Holy Cross for Coach Bob Chesney. Bob Chesney accepts a job at James Madison University after Kurt Signetti leaves the James Madison program to accept a job over there at Indiana. Matthew Sluka decides to hit the portal after Chesney leaves. He ends up transferring to UNLV. Matthew Sluka is a quarterback that, if you look at his passing numbers, aren't going to blow you away, but he's one of the best rushers at the quarterback position in the entire country, leading UNLV to one of the best rushing offenses in the entire country, including 2 wins over Big 12 teams. That's 2 power conference wins in the first 3 weeks of the season, including one over Kansas, one over Houston, both teams who were ranked pretty highly when they did play them at the time. The issue is, Matthew Sluka was allegedly promised $100,000 by the offensive coordinator to transfer to UNLV. As of now, as of what's being reported, and I'm going to be very careful about this because it's a he said, she said situation, Matthew Sluka has only gotten $3,000 of it. So only 3% of what he was promised. Now, the issue is the way that NIL is set up right now. The settlement hasn't been completed between the NCAA versus House in that lawsuit over there. There's a lot of stuff still going on and still getting figured out. But what it boils down to is this was a verbal agreement between Sluka and the offensive coordinator. The offensive coordinator has come out and said, here's what happened. Matthew Sluka came into the office and was like, my market value's gone up. I need more money. The Sluka family and their representatives have said that is not what happened. We're just trying to get what we were promised. The issue is this is not in writing. It was a verbal agreement. So like I said, it's a lot of he said, she said. The NIL group has nothing written about it, so they don't have any proof for either way. Sluka is stepping back. He is taking his red shirt season now, so he's going to have one more year of eligibility looking to transfer. And this is a very complicated and honestly really interesting situation for the future of college football and NIL. Obviously, NIL is this huge, massive thing that everyone in college is trying to figure out right now. NIL is going to be the face of it. They have multiple lawsuits going on right now. The House versus NCAA lawsuit right now is basically going to allow schools to directly pay their athletes. That hasn't been passed yet. The settlement hasn't been reached yet, however you want to put it. So as we sit here right now, it's all through these NIL collectives. But the offensive coordinator allegedly made a promise, word of mouth, that you would get $100,000 if you transferred here. That hasn't gotten here yet. And this is, again, probably going to continue to happen until the NCAA, until college football finds a better way to deal with NIL. Because we see stuff like this. This is just a classic, always make sure you get it in writing kind of situation, right? Because we have no proof. Right now, UNLV can just hide behind, hey, what are you talking about? We never said we were going to do that. And they just have no way of proving it, which is kind of a dirty move if that's the case. It's going to, first of all, hurt recruitment a lot if that ends up happening. I think it's already going to hurt recruitment. Or alternatively, if Sluka came in and said, hey, I need more money because we started off 3-0, we're in the playoff chase, we're ranked number 23 in the coaches poll, I'm about to lead you guys to the playoffs, we've beaten 2 Power 4 conference teams, pay up a little more, I need some more money, then it looks bad on him. But we have no idea what actually is true. I, for one, am more likely to believe the side of Matthew Sluka here. He's just a young guy. He's just a kid, really. You go up against a university. And I have a harder time believing, I have an easier time believing a university would pull something like this than a kid would pull something like he is being accused of by some people in the UNLV area, right? It's a very murky, complicated situation. and we'll keep you updated as more stuff continues to come out. But as of now, this just kind of goes to a question of how NIL is going to be handled as a whole. Obviously, once schools get the ability to start to pay people directly, it's going to be a little bit more streamlined. But there's still going to be these situations where, hey, you talk to a guy on the phone, you're like, hey, we're going to get you this, 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 and this, and then those are just never met. And if you don't have that in writing, maybe that's something that obviously these people, the agents of these kids that are negotiating NIL deals with these schools probably should have done, may get everything documented. But you have to remember these guys are just kids. He's 20, 21, 22, 23 right now. Sluka is. So it's kind of a lot to expect him to do. You get promised $100,000. He's not a guy that we're looking at expecting to go pro in the NFL. This is going to be his big payday for football. He's not a guy that's going to make it to that next level, but he's currently leading a team pretty excellently. He'll get a solid chunk in NIL next year, as long as he proves he can keep it up and he gets his name cleared. It's kind of a shame here. It reflects poorly on both sides a little bit right now, because it makes it a little harder to believe what anybody is saying. But as we take a look at it as it stands, it's just a messy situation. NIL needs to get figured out, and it needs to get figured out. Otherwise, more kids are going to get taken advantage of. More kids are going to take advantage of universities. More stuff like this, more complicated situations are going to continue to happen, and it's only going to continue to get messier. But let me know what you think happened here. Again, still really early on. News of this broke yesterday at like midnight. So we're still figuring stuff out. It's going to be a very long and complicated process, but we'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on here with Sluka and UNLV. We'll see how UNLV responds, because, like I said, they were in a very good position to make a run for that group of 5 spot in the playoffs. But now they're just in a little bit of trouble here. You lose your starting quarterback. It's never easy to come out of that. But like I said, let me know what you think. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to continue our trip around college football. The Pac-12 continues to attempt to expand, adding Utah State and a lawsuit with the Mountain West. We've talked a lot about what they're doing, some of the teams that they could add. We have some updates around that as well. So we'll give you an update of everything surrounding the Pac-12 and college football expansion here in just a moment. Stick around here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the ever-evolving story involving Matthew Sluka, the starting quarterback at UNLV, stepping away from the team after 3 weeks, using his redshirt year after he did not get the NIL money he allegedly was promised from the coaching staff. Like I said, an ever-evolving situation kind of shines a light on the mess that NIL is right now in the world of college sports. I'm sure that happens to a lot of different players, but this is one of the more publicized ones that we've had in a very, very long time. In this segment, we're going to finish out our college football updates with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is continuing to try to get up to 8 members. It adds one more in Utah State, but it also adds a lawsuit to its table. We talked about the fee that the Mountain West was incurring on the Pac-12 for poaching teams. They sued them over that. We'll talk about all of that and the other updates around current realignment issues in the NCAA. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, September 25th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into a little bit of the Pac-12. The Pac-12, we talked a little bit about them. They added 4 teams from the Mountain West, all state teams. They added Colorado State, they added Boise State, they added Fresno State, and Utah State is the newest one to be added to that list. They now have 7 total teams officially on their roster to be added in 2026. The issue is now they have poached 5 teams from the Mountain West, and each of one of those comes with a poaching fee, is what they're calling it. The Mountain West is saying, hey, you keep stealing our teams, you keep stealing our conference. And we talked a lot about the Pac-12, whether or not they would be considered a power conference back, I believe, a week ago when we talked about this, when it was first announced the teams they were adding to their roster, to the Pac-12, San Diego State as well. But now the Pac-12 is suing the Mountain West after stealing 5 of their teams, after basically just walking into their home and replacing the name up top. It's just the Mountain West under new management, basically. They poached a lot of the top 5 teams. A target for them still is UNLV. We just talked about the mess that they currently are in with Matthew Sluka, their former, I should say, starting quarterback. But there were other teams they were rumored to be targeting. Teams in the American, teams like Tulane, teams like Memphis, teams like USF, teams like UTSA. They all made a commitment saying, hey, we are the American Conference. We are not leaving the American Conference. The American Conference is our home, which is huge, and also it's very smart for them. I know the allure of joining the Pac-12 is real. I know the allure of joining what, as of just last season, was a Power 5 conference. It no longer is. If you look under the hood of that shiny brand, if you look at what they have, you have basically just the Mountain West. That's basically what it is. You know, the Mountain West had the opportunity to just bring in Oregon State and Washington State. They said no. Now, the Pac-12 is instead saying, all right, you don't want us? We'll just take your guys. They'll come join us. They'll come join the Pac-12 banner. The Pac-12 isn't dead, but the Mountain West is about to be. The rules are you need to have 8 teams to be a conference. And at this point, the Mountain West is down to 7, and so is the Pac-12. They're currently sitting at a point where one of them is not going to exist anymore. And my bets are the Mountain West is a team that doesn't have the sway to get another member unless it's from the FCS. And I don't see them going that way. I think the Mountain West is in real trouble now. Now they're a part of a lawsuit with the Pac-12. The Pac-12 that is just really taking over their territory and laughing in their face about it. It's a little bit unfair, honestly. It's kind of bullying if you look at it a little bit that way. But Pac-12 still has all its money. It has all that war chest from the other teams that all left for the Power 4 squads now. They weren't able to touch any of that TV money. Washington State and Oregon State have a lot of money just kind of lying around for a rainy day. And this is currently a rainy day. They're using it to sue the Mountain West to avoid paying those fees, those poaching fees that they're getting. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play out in a court of law, but the Pac-12 looks like it's been adding. The UNLV made a commitment saying, hey, as long as nobody else leaves, we will stay in the Mountain West. Unfortunately, Utah State left, which means that discussions have started up again. UNLV back in conversation to join the Pac-12. I expect them to be the team that switches over. If they have to take Nevada with them, I'm sure the Pac-12 will. They don't want to take Nevada with them, and there are ways around that. We saw that happen with Oregon and Oregon State. We saw that happen with Washington and Washington State, where laws were circumvented somehow. They figured some kind of contract out, some kind of loophole, and I'm sure they can find another one with UNLV. But currently, UNLV is kind of attached at the hip to Nevada. So I expect UNLV to be the team that goes over. All the other options kind of just don't really exist anymore. Maybe the Mountain West can go out and grab some of those FCS teams that want to transition up to the FBS, a team like Idaho, team like Eastern Washington, teams like that are really looking to move up a level. But if they are unable to do that, I think the Mountain West is dead at this point, regardless of this lawsuit or not. They just keep losing their members, and I think maybe some of these others, maybe the current members of the Mountain West are going to look to transfer out. Other Group of 5 conferences maybe take their place here. Still be Group of 5 after the Pac-12 joins, because the Pac-12 will still be a Group of 5 conference with the teams they're adding. They're not adding Power 5 talent. They're not a Power 5 conference. But it's an interesting situation. Again, conference realignment has been the biggest story of what has been the wildest offseason in college football. It felt like a new era was beginning, but I feel like we're just starting to settle into it. We're in that midsection where we're in pure chaos mode, pure anarchy in college football. We have the trying to figure out how NIL works. We're in that anarchy situations where it hasn't really been set up. No rules there are very few and limiting rules for the NIL right now. Conference realignment is still going crazy. Maybe it calms down next season, and maybe we can officially have a real new era beginning with this 12-team college football playoff. But I digress. Craziness going on in the Pac-12. They're going to be back in 2026. Should be a lot of fun. I cannot wait for the future of college football. It's a telenovela over there right now. Let me know what you think is going to happen, who the Pac-12 is going to add as that final team that they need. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to transition into the world of baseball. Playoff races are winding up. Almost all of the teams have clinched. Almost all of the divisions have been clinched. There's just a couple of wildcard spots left in both the NL and the AL. We'll go over all the teams that clinched, the craziness that's been going on since we last talked about the playoff race, and much more here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Wednesday, September 25th, and if you are just tuning in, we just finished going over all of the biggest news coming out of college football this week, including the Pac-12 adding their 7th member, one more needed to become a full conference by 2026. We also talked about Matthew Sluka, his issues with UNLV, and that complicated ongoing situation with his NIL deal. It's just a mess over there. In this segment here, we are going to get into the world of baseball, though. The MLB playoff race is heating up with just about 6 or so games to go for almost every team left. 5 maybe even less for a couple of those based on the math, how that works. We're going to do a quick MLB tour around the playoffs and stop at the White Sox real quick as well. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, throw it in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, September 25th. But like I was saying, in this segment here, we're transitioning into the world of baseball. The MLB playoff picture, the updates that we need to give it. Currently, all but 4 teams have clinched a spot in the MLB playoffs for this season. There are 2 spots open in the NL after the San Diego Padres clinched last night. There are 2 spots open in the AL as the Baltimore Orioles clinched last night. Let's quickly go through the divisions, the ones that have been clinched. The AL Central. Cleveland Guardians have officially clinched the AL Central. They are the only team in that division that's really winning games right now, aside from the Detroit Tigers. And we'll get to that division in a second because that division is the thing we kind of have to focus on the most in the AL wildcard race, with Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota all battling for those last couple of spots. The Houston Astros have clinched the AL West once again, looking to make their 8th straight ALCS after a disastrous start to the season. They are back to where everyone expected them to be, atop of the AL West. Seattle is the last team in that division still in it. They've got an outside shot at that wild card. The AL East has not been decided, but it is a race of 2 teams. The Baltimore Orioles and the Yankees have both clinched playoff spots. The Yankees are up 5 games on them. If they win every single game, the Yankees, if the Baltimore Orioles win every single game and the Yankees lose every single game on the way to the end of the season, the Orioles will win the division. If not, the Yankees will. So it's all but the Yankees division right now, as the Orioles and the Yankees are actually currently playing a series. In the NL, the Philadelphia Phillies have clinched their division. The Philadelphia Phillies have clinched their division over the New York Mets and the Atlanta Braves, who are battling for the NL wildcard spot. The Milwaukee Brewers have clinched their division, although we knew that last week. They were the first team to clinch a playoff spot. They have clinched their division. Everyone else in their in their division has officially been eliminated. And that leaves us with the West. At the top of that division, we have the Dodgers. They haven't clinched yet because the San Diego Padres are just 2 games back of them. San Diego Padres have been insanely hot since the All-Star break. That has not really slowed down at all. They clinched their playoff spot, much like the AL East. It's a lot closer though. Only 2 games out. This is not the Dodgers division secured at all. With about 5 games to go, it's tough to make it up, but there is a chance here as we get down to it. They're currently in the middle of playing each other. The Padres won last night. If they're able to sweep the series, the Padres are, it comes down to the final series. They will be tied heading into it for that division. We will see what happens, though. So there's still a lot of intrigue around divisions, but the real intrigue comes with the MLB wildcard race. And we're going to start off in the NL because the NL has been pretty simple for a lot of the season. The Mets, or at least for the back half of the season, the Padres clinched their spot. They're going to probably be that first wild card. They haven't clinched it yet. As long as they don't basically lose out, they have clinched the top wild card spot. The Mets, currently 4 games back of them in that second wild card spot. This is the highest they've been all season. They're half a game up on Arizona, who has slowly started to slip back a little bit. Arizona only half a game up on the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves are a team that at multiple times throughout the season have felt like locks to be in the playoffs, to be in that wild card, have felt like locks to miss the playoffs, to be out of the wild card. It's been a mess all season long between these four teams, especially in that back half. The Mets started off really slow. Ever since June 11th, they've been one of the hotter teams in baseball. They went through a couple of stretches of struggling, but overall, they've been amazing. Almost unbeatable. Feel like a team of destiny. They're almost a lock to get in. They're only one game out of elimination right now, and they do play the Atlanta Braves coming up. So that is a huge series. That means a lot. Arizona, on the other hand, while they were one of the hotter teams coming out of the break, they went on a huge run to almost keeping pace, or they were keeping pace with the San Diego Padres for a while there. Now they are in danger of falling out of the playoffs. A team that made it to the World Series last year, a great run from them. They need to capture some of that magic back. It's going to be a tough stretch down the end. If you had to ask me right now, it feels like it's going to be the Braves. It feels like it's going to be the Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, the reason I think the Diamondbacks are definitely going to get in is because the Mets and the Braves play each other. And whoever wins that series is probably going to be in. The Arizona Diamondbacks don't have to play the Mets or the Braves. Now, they do have to play the Padres. That's not necessarily easy, but the Mets and the Braves play each other, so one of them is going to cannibalize the other. The Braves, I think, have the slightly easier path, but only slightly. Only slightly. After they get done with the Mets, they play the Royals, another playoff team. The Mets, after they get done with the Braves, they take on the Brewers, another playoff team. Arizona, after they get done with this series, they finish off against the Padres. They're playing the Giants right now. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of different scenarios here, but I feel like Arizona basically has their ticket punched as long as they don't get swept in any of these series, and I think I'm leaning towards the Braves in this one, actually. I don't know why. It feels like the Mets are just going to fall short of this one in this series with the Braves. They play a doubleheader basically for the season. We'll see what happens, though, because it's not going to be a clincher or anything, but it should be a lot of fun to watch. In the AL, some stuff has gone down. We've been talking for weeks about the Detroit Tigers. We've been talking about how they've been the hottest team in baseball in September, and don't blink now. Don't look now. But the Detroit Tigers, they're in the playoffs. The Detroit Tigers have crawled all the way back from where they were at the beginning of the month to make that third wildcard spot. Both the Royals and the Twins cannot win games right now. The Royals are coming off of an extra innings win that probably they should not have won, but they're playing the Nats, and the Nats are not very good at baseball. The Twins continue to lose games. They're both 3-7 over their last 10. Detroit is 8-2. Detroit is basically going to make it. Now, they're up 2 games on both the Mariners and the Minnesota Twins. With about 4 games to go for all of those teams, it is well within the grasp. Now, we take a look at it. Seattle's been one of the hottest offensive teams, and they have one of the best pitching staffs, but they seem like they're just going to fall short. The Tigers should hold it up here. The Baltimore Orioles have already clinched. They should get that first wild card. I think the Royals and I think it's going to be the Royals and the Tigers at this point. The Royals have the easiest schedule down the stretch, which is why I'm giving it to them. They have a couple more games against the Washington Nationals, and then they finish it up with not an easy stretch against the Braves. But I mean, you take a look at the Twins, who just can't win games. They've just lost to the Marlins. Then they get the Orioles. The Seattle Mariners, on the other hand, while their pitching staff is awesome and they've been able to hit the ball a little bit, they do get the A's here. If they manage to get a little bit lucky down the stretch here, they could make a run. Now, the issue is they're 2 games out, so it's most likely going to be Kansas City and Detroit as it stands right now. But if some magic stuff goes down, if the Kansas City Royals continue to forget how to win baseball games, Seattle might be able to sneak in there instead of Kansas City. I think it's going to be Detroit and Kansas City, though, but it should be, again, a fun race down the stretch to the pennant, to the MLB playoffs, to October baseball. I cannot wait for that. We have eyes to keep on it. Teams could clinch divisions tonight. And like I promised, we're going to talk about the White Sox a little bit as well. This is not playoff. This is chasing another record. The worst record in the history of modern baseball. The White Sox, as I casually mentioned at the end of the show yesterday, have 120 losses, tied for the 62 Mets for the most losses in the history of modern baseball. Only the Cleveland Spiders in 1899 have more. That's not modern baseball era, though, before integration. But the White Sox managed to beat the Angels on a big blunder from the Angels last night. They have 2 more games against the Angels, then they finish off with a series against the White Sox. If they're able to go on a 5-game win streak here, or a 6-game win streak is what it would be, I would be amazed. I would be shocked. We are on worst record watch, and this is something I cannot wait to come with you. So maybe by tomorrow I can come out here and say officially the Chicago White Sox have the worst record in modern baseball history. But let me know what you think. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who's going to make the wild card in the AL, in the NL? I would love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are turning our attention to the WNBA. The playoffs are in full swing. 2 teams have already been eliminated in a couple of really good games last night. We're going to talk about all of that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished going over the MLB playoff situation. Craziness going on in the AL, in the NL, especially surrounding the wild cards. Lots of fun stuff going around the sport of baseball. But in this segment, we're going to finish off our show talking about some actual playoffs that are going on. The WNBA playoffs, the first round is in full swing. We talked about the 8th seed. We talked about the battle for it. The Atlanta Dream were able to come up on top. Unfortunately, they are one of the 2 teams that have been eliminated already, going up against the New York Liberty, who came out with a huge game from Sabrina Ionescu. We're going to talk about all of that and more in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the message in it. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday, September 25th. But like I was saying, we are going to finish off our show with a little tour around the WNBA. The WNBA had its first round of elimination games yesterday, with the number 1 seed, the New York Liberty, taking care of the number 8 seed Atlanta Dream, the first team to be eliminated. That was a very, very good game. Sabrina Ionescu sets a team record with 36 points in that one. The New York Liberty are a team that has been dominant all season long. A team that's only lost 7 games in the year. That team is incredible. Brianna Stewart as well. There are just very few weaknesses on that team. But the other team that advanced, and the team that will be taking on the New York Liberty in the second round of the playoffs, the number 4 seed Las Vegas Aces. The Aces, a team that has the second ever unanimous MVP in Asia Wilson. Dangerous team. The Aces have been very good for a very long time. I think I believe they're coming off of a championship themselves. This is going to be a powerhouse of a series in the second round, probably the best one in the WNBA that we could have possibly hoped for. But there's a couple of other elimination games tonight. The Aces took care of the Seattle Storm in what was a much closer game than a lot of people, than at least I was expecting. Couple of games tonight. The Minnesota Lynx take on the number 2 seed Minnesota Lynx, take on the number 7 seed Phoenix Mercury in game 2. It's a best of 3 series. And the Connecticut Sun, with a 1-0 lead, take on the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark. I think the winner, regardless, comes out of that Aces or New York Liberty series right now. Not that these games don't matter at the bottom, but if we're taking a look at in my opinion, the 2 best teams in the WNBA, we're taking a look at, the number 1 seed New York Liberty, the number 4 seed Las Vegas Aces. And that's nothing against the Minnesota Lynx, who are hosting game 2, nothing against the Connecticut Sun, who are hosting game 2 against the Liberty. It's just not going to be the same. These are probably the biggest games on TV tonight outside of the MLB. It should be a lot of fun to see how these two series finish up if we get a game 3. Now, I don't expect any of these series to go 3 games. I think the Lynx and the Connecticut Sun are just head and shoulders better than the Mercury and the Fever. As much as you want to talk up Caitlin Clark, as much as you want to talk up what they've done in that second half of the season, it's just not as good as the Connecticut Sun. The Minnesota Lynx just play much better together as a team. I expect the favorites to move on. Should be 1, 2, 3, 4 after a couple of sweeps of the series. But I cannot wait for the second round. I cannot wait for the beginning of the New York Liberty and the Las Vegas Aces. That's a series that I'm going to be locked in on for, and I cannot wait to see that one. But let me know what you think of the WNBA. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The playoffs are here. It's been a great season for them. They went up against the NFL on Sunday, which was, I think, a mistake, but they've learned they're not going up against the NFL anymore. They'll take a break on Thursday, and they'll basically just play weekdays, but we'll see. Who do you think is going to win the series? Who do you think is going to get out of the WNBA into the semifinals? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning into today's show, today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We'll be back here same time, same place tomorrow, talking about all of the biggest news in the world of sports, including previewing the Thursday night football game between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys, as well as anything else that pops up. So stick around. So tune in tomorrow for that. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Tired of shit and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn it.